Welcome to episode 53 of the Edges and Sledges cricket podcast. It has been a whirlwind of a week with the IPL taking all of the world of cricket by storm. I'm Ashwin, your host, joining this week from Cincinnati as usual. And then joining me is DJ, my co-podcaster from London. DJ, thanks for joining me. We don't have Varun with us today because as we record this, he is on a flight home from the US back to Singapore. So he'll be back together with us next week. But as we mentioned on a previous show, we started off last week's IPL episodes talking about the Delhi Capitals in detail. From this week onwards until for the next 7 weeks, we're going to have a guest joining us to talk about each of the 7 other teams. So for the second half of this show, we have a guest joining us who is a Mumbai Indians fan. Not a great time to be talking about the Mumbai Indians, but it's a familiar season when you start a little bit slow. I'm sure everybody's certain Mumbai will bounce back. So stay tuned for the second segment when we have a fan joining us from the Mumbai Indians to talk a little bit more about that team. But until then, DJ, we're going to talk about some really interesting things. If you remember, at the end of episode 52, 3 games of the IPL had passed. So we talked about the first 3 matches in our 52nd episode. So we're going to talk about some of the highlights from the next 9 games. As it stands, 12 games have been completed. When IPL is going on, it's almost a little bit of a blur, right? How have you been feeling in the last 1 week of matches?
Yeah, the matches have been coming thick and fast. So we've all been trying to keep track of them, but I must admit, a couple of times I do get confused on what's coming up next. So, yeah, we've got to keep track of them. Enjoying the big hitting, the sixes, and I mean, it's been a pretty action-packed week, both on and off the field of cricket. So, yeah, plenty to talk about this week.
Okay, so with that, let's jump right in. As I think about it, I was thinking about how do we summarize the end of sort of week 1 or 12 matches of the IPL, and I look at it. There's some things that have basically stayed the same as we've seen for the last 12 years. So whether that's Chennai Super Kings at the top of the table, they're currently 3 matches, 3 wins and 6 points, or RCB and Rajasthan at the bottom of the table, and Mumbai Indians also being slow starters. So there's some things that, have stayed very much the same, but there've been a lot of new things happening and some things pretty different. So we're going to cover 5 of our favorite highlights from the week on this episode. So the first one we're going to get into, and DJ, I'd love for you to walk our listeners through it, is the Kings 11 Punjab versus Rajasthan Royal game and what is being called Mankad Gate, or the Mankading incident of IPL 2019. It was only the 4th match, so right after we released our last episode, if it feels like a long time ago. But do you want to walk through just quickly what happened, and then we can chat a little about reactions?
Yeah, of course. So this was when Josh Buttler was going great guns. He was batting on 63 or 69 not out actually, and it was about 12 and a half overs in. The Kings 11 had put up a good score, which the Rajasthan Royals were looking to chase. Rahane was already out. I think it was Sanju Samson at the other end. And Ashwin had taken the first wicket, and he walks up to bowl. He makes as if to bowl, and he just waits. And Josh Buttler wanders out of his crease, and Ashwin whips the bails off. Buttler kind of protests. He's not happy about something. Maybe he wanted to be warned. Ashwin, I think from my lip reading skills and the little bit of stump mic you could hear, is he said, "This is my space," which I'm not sure what that was meant to mean. But he was basically saying, "I'm within the rules to run you out." The umpires sent it up. Josh Buttler is out of his ground. The umpires deem that the Mankad is legal, or the run out is legal, so to speak, or the Jost or the Butler, whatever you want to call it, because he is the world record holder for that kind of dismissal, is legal. And off Josh Buttler goes. The Rajasthan Royals promptly collapse. They do all sorts of strange things. I mean, one of the things that actually put the game into perspective was Jofra Archer's run out and the scrambled minds that the Rajasthan Royals were displaying at that point. And once they lose the game, all hell kind of breaks loose on social media. A lot of English people, English podcasters, and we spoke to one of them on the Cricket Badger Radio Show podcast, so go and check that out if you've got some time. A lot of English podcasters are very angry with it. Lots of writers are angry with it. This is against the spirit of cricket. And conversely, there's lots of chat about this within the laws and all of that stuff. And I mean, the Twitterverse just kind of exploded, and those are the facts of the situation. I don't know, Ashwin, what did you make of it?
Yeah, so really interesting. I mean, I think you're right as to what Ashwin said. I think he was talking about, even in the post-match press conference, he talked about how the crease is my space. And he's been very public about saying in the past as well that, listen, batsmen get all the advantages in the world. The one thing the bowler has is that the crease is my space. So the laws are crystal clear. In fact, they were updated in 2017 to make sure it was even clearer that until the ball has left the bowler's hand, it the batsman needs to stay behind the line. I think the wording is the onus is on the batsman to stay behind the line until the ball has left the bowler's hand. And so that basically says mankading is completely legal. What Ashwin did is completely within the laws of the game. There's some argument potentially about, hey, should the umpires have called it a dead ball when Ashwin stopped in his delivery stride? And you can argue that all night. But ultimately, I think Ashwin did what was legal. Buttler is guilty of having done this before. There suddenly becomes this crazy argument about the spirit of cricket and, he should have done the right thing and warned him. And I mean, again, you talked about it at length on the Cricket Badger radio podcast. For anybody who wants to listen to an entire episode just about mankading, I think go check that out. But in my opinion, he did what was completely within the laws of the game. I think it'll shape, the next few years of batsmen being a little bit more careful. We saw an incident where, Krunal Pandya almost mankaded somebody in yesterday's game, and then obviously didn't do it. Otherwise, that would have made pretty big news too. So, in my opinion, he was within his rights. You can argue that bowlers have never done it before, so they shouldn't. But this guy's been consistent. I've seen clips from 2014, 2016, where he's, been public about saying the crease belongs to me. And if you want to not be run out, stay within the damn crease until I let go of the ball. So, DJ, I know you're kind of on the same page. Anything else to add to that one?
Yeah, since I had that chat with James on the Cricket Budget podcast, a few other ex-cricketers have come out and talked about the Mankad and how it's a bad image for Ravi Chandran Ashwin and how people have lost respect for him and stuff. One of them is Shane Warne, right? This is a guy who gave information to bookies, got banned for taking drugs for a World Cup, if you remember correctly. And I mean, who is he to be talking about the spirit of cricket? This guy, he sledged everyone mercilessly, constantly. So I don't know where he's getting off on this stuff and how people have lost respect for Ashwin and how Indian fans are being biased by defending him. We're not. I mean, for someone like Warne to speak about bias, I find that fascinating. And secondly, I mean, Warne should not be commenting on stuff like this. Secondly, Stuart Broad came out earlier in this week saying it's not a good image for the game of cricket. And I mean, where is he getting off on this high horse? He's a guy who actually smashed the ball to slip and hung around and said he was not out. And he got away with it and he defended it in an Ashes match. I think it was Ashton Agar. It would have been his first test wicket, which was denied. Now, I mean, I don't understand this where just because it's, I think Owen Morgan tweeted it and saying Ashwin's going to regret this in coming years and things like that. I'm just like, just because it's Joss Buttler who's been mankaded for the second time in his career, mind you, and I will emphasize this again and again, he's been done twice. He needs to start a foot behind the crease. I mean, it's unforgivable. And I find it amazing that no one's holding him responsible for his own actions. The reason, and there's all this chat about Kohli, what if it happened to Kohli? I'm telling you, it's not going to happen to Kohli. Since he's been 10 years old, he's been told, if you get out in a stupid way, you're going to be out of the team, right? It's been drilled into him. He's disciplined enough to make sure he does it. He watches the bowler bowl the ball from his hand every time. Some people seem to think that this game owes them a living, right? It doesn't. Just because you hit the ball really well, you're a great striker of the ball, it doesn't make you a great non-striker of the ball. And Joss Buttler right now is the most exciting non-striker of the ball. So we need to look into his culpability in this whole situation. So what I found quite interesting is what's gone around it. And it's because of the characters involved. You've got a player from a very powerful team, India, Ashwin on one side, and you've got another player from a very powerful team, Joss Buttler, on the other side. And they seem to be taking on this whole angelic kind of, it's us against them, or the spirit of cricket. What spirit of cricket? Why is Stuart Broad talking about the spirit of cricket? Jimmy Anderson has come out on the BBC Tailenders podcast and shredded an image of Ravi Chandran Ashwin today, by the way. Jimmy Anderson, who's had 2 demerit points in the last 6 months. One for, I think, throwing the ball on the pitch after he was warned for running on it, and 2 for snatching his jumper from Kumar Dharmasena, I think, at the Oval Test match because an appeal was turned down. How are these people talking about the spirit of cricket? Oh, this is what's boggling my mind, really. Forget the incident, yeah. Whatever happened, happened. Why are people who have nothing, like, nothing to contribute to this debate in a positive way, actually weighing in. That's what's really annoying me.
Yeah, that was a nice little rant there. I think I'm 100% on the same page as you. It's just become a division across nation lines, and it'll be interesting to see how the next few years shape out. I think the counter to what you mentioned on all these cricketers who've come out against is there have been quite a few supporting voices saying, "Look, the laws are the laws." Has been consistent in his point of view, and he did what he felt was right. So very exciting. Again, like I said, we can talk about this coming home, but what a start to the IPL to have a scandal like that in the fourth match. The fifth match was pretty innocuous. It was Delhi versus Chennai. Chennai took that one home. Watson was the real factor there. He won man of the match. But we're going to jump over and talk about the match after that, which again, of course, featured Ravi Ashwin's team and the Kings 11 Punjab. So I'm going to quickly summarize. It was very, very exciting. I think KKR was batting. Andre Russell walked in, was dismissed. I think he was on 1 or 0, actually, very, very early in his innings after the top order had put on a good platform thanks to Uthappa and Rana. And as he's walking off the field, the umpires have signaled the delivery by Mohammad Shami, a beautiful Yorker, by the way. They've signaled it a no ball. Russell has to walk back in, and as they're trying to figure out why was it a no ball, he didn't overstep. It was actually because there were only 3 fielders in the 30-yard circle, and there need to be 4 by law. And so Ravi Ashwin, yet again as the skipper in the center of attention, didn't have enough fielders inside the circle, and the delivery to dismiss Andre Russell had to be rebowled as a free hit. Russell went on to hit 48 off just 17 deliveries, an outstanding knock. And then he picked up 2 wickets as well, and KKR won that game by 20 runs, I think it was. So 28 runs. So DJ, just a couple of days after the monk cutting incident, Ashwin's in the limelight yet again for a massive captaincy gaffe that cost him a Russell's wicket and potentially the game. Your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I think Russell was on 1 when the ball went up, and he was he was on 1 when he got out. And I mean, I think Ashwin just had to take that one on the chin. He put his hand up and said, "Yes, it's fine. There's nothing I should have done better. I got that one wrong." And I mean, Andre Russell, what a player he is, and what a mistake to make at that stage. I think Russell got 48 of 16. It's absolutely incredible hitting, some massive, massive sixes. And then he came back and bowled really well and kind of took the KKR team to the win. So I don't know whether Ashwin was slightly distracted by what had gone on before, but it wasn't a good look for Ashwin. I mean, it's a pretty basic captaincy protocol to make sure that you've got 4 fielders in the circle, right? And it's pretty rare that you see this being called a no ball at this level of cricket. And Ashwin hasn't captained that much I'd say at international level, he hasn't captained at all. But he's only taken on the Kings 11 Punjab captaincy last year. And it seemed like a pretty schoolboy error. So I'd say 1-1 to Joss Butler and 1 to Ravichandran Ashwin on that.
Yeah, thanks. Pretty disappointing, obviously, to see him in the news so short after the monk-cutting incident. I have a feeling this is not the last we're going to see of Ravi Ashwin. So 2 really exciting things we already talked about, the monk-cut and the no ball. There were a couple of exciting things happening with the Mumbai Indians, but as we mentioned, we have a fan of the Mumbai Indians joining us for the second half. So we're going to hold those and talk those in the second half of the show. We then moved on. Hyderabad won against Rajasthan Royals. Mumbai won against Bangalore. Lots of games, as we mentioned. But suddenly then we got to this thrilling match between the Delhi Capitals and the Kolkata Knight Riders. I'm going to jump in to that one a little bit and spend some time on that. So KKR batted first, put on 185 runs for 8 wickets. Really, really good batting after they were down to 61 for 5. So very disappointing to see Delhi be able to get the opposition, an opposition with a top order as strong as KKR, got to 61 for 5. But then arguably the best number 6 and 7 in the world, Dinesh Karthik and Andre Russell, put on a brilliant partnership, got them to 185. And the match, honestly, for Delhi fans seemed all but over. We were so excited at 61 for 5. We were so disappointed when they made 185. And then 19-year-old Prithvi Shaw comes out, gets to 99 of 54 balls. And with just a couple of overs left, when it seemed like a walk in the park, it was, about a run a ball needed for the last 3 overs. Shaw goes for the big shot, gets out on 99. So really, really disappointing for this young kid who was so close to his century and so badly deserved it. Rishabh Pant plays a useless shot, gets out, going for glory. Hanuma Vihari comes in, gets out, going for a big shot. And suddenly they're down to 2 runs needed off the last ball. Ingram runs it down to the boundary rope. Uthappa picks it up. They get one, and as coming back for the second, Ingram gets run out. So what seemed like a walk in the park chase with 18 balls left ended up in a tie that obviously resulted in a super over. So tied at 185, the super over started. DJ, did you watch enough of that? Do you want to recap what happened in the super over for us?
So I actually was traveling this weekend, so I watched the actual game, and by the time the super over started, I only watched the first ball of the super over because for some reason the network just went out wherever I was. So I had to kind of rely on slow loading Crick Info to tell me what happened, and I believe it was the ball of the century. So I'm afraid, Ashwin, you're going to have to take this one.
Okay, I'd be happy to recap that because I've watched the entire super over. I want to say 4 or 5
How many times
now. Yeah, the whole super over probably 4 times, and that one ball about maybe 25 times. So
yeah, I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. So as is the rule with super overs, the team that batted second in the match bats first in the super over. So KKR and Dinesh Karthik trusted Prasidh Krishna with the ball. It's only the second time an uncapped player has bowled in a super over in the IPL. So that's a big, big gesture, or show of faith rather, from the captain. So on the first, in the super over, essentially started okay. Iyer got a 4 and then got out, hit a skyer. I thought it was interesting first off to send Iyer and Pant in with Shaw coming in 1 down. I think Pant looked pretty scratchy. Iyer was probably the right choice, and either you should have sent in Shaw or, again, on paper, Colin Ingram could have been a really good choice. So by the third ball, Iyer got out. Nothing really happened after that. Pant was just not timing it. Shaw stood patiently on the other end. Pant got 2, 2, and 1, so ended up with 10 for 1. Had they, 10 for 1 would have been the lowest score ever defended in a super over in the IPL, and Delhi obviously had to come out and bring something special. They threw the ball to Kagiso Rabada. I think one of the top 3 test bowlers at the moment. He keeps fluctuating between Rabada, Cummins, and Bumrah. Had an average day, pretty decent day overall, but he was trusted with the ball. And he said in the press conference, he just told Ponting, Ganguly, and Iyer, hey, I'm just going to bowl Yorkers. And so he comes out, attempts a Yorker. It ends up as a low full toss on the legs, and Russell smacks it for 4. I mean, I would tell you first off, Andre Russell is the number 1 player in the world anybody would want to have if you go to a super over situation. I think just the form he's been in and his big hitting prowess in general, just an unbelievable cricketer. So first ball goes for 4.
So that's the point. My feed went out, by the way. So I'm like, okay, so
my goodness,
that's done. So great.
I mean, chasing 11, at 4 for 0, you must have thought it's done, right?
Yeah. And I was like, I mean, even Rabada can't save us from here.
Yeah. At that point, I have to tell you, I started looking it up and realized even 10 was enough for KKR because they needed. If a super over is tied, it goes down to the number of boundaries hit, which I think the teams were tied on as well, and then it goes to the number of sixes hit, which KKR was ahead on. So anyway, I'm sure those of you guys listening now have seen it or heard about it, so there's not much suspense. But that third ball of the over, Rabada fires in a beautiful Yorker, 147 kilometers an hour, right at the base of middle stumps. Russell can't do anything. He's completely tripped up. Russell's bowled. 4th ball, Yorker. 5th ball, Yorker. And 6th ball, Yorker. They only managed singles on each of those balls. Ended up with 7 runs, fell 3 runs short in the super over. And Delhi managed to get those points on the board. So my overall reaction, if you can't tell from the sound of our voices, it was an incredibly exciting game for us. I think, us being Delhi Capital fans, of course, I think Delhi deserved those points. Having bowled the way they did early on, having batted the way they did in the chase, but should not have obviously let it get as close as they did. The points are points. We'll take him. But DJ, your reaction? We had our first super over of the IPL within just the first week in the 10th match.
I think it was amazing. I mean, this week has been amazing. You had the Mankad or the run out, whichever part of the debate you fall on. You had those 2 controversial no ball situations, and you had the first super over. And just to add on to what you were saying, I think Delhi fielded brilliantly as well. I mean, Rabada took a fantastic catch. Rishabh Pant took a screamer. There was that run out for Shubman Gill, which was some fantastic fielding and teamwork on the boundary. Tewatia took a really good catch as well. So, I mean, I think Delhi deserved those points. I mean, they messed up towards the end. I mean, we needed 19, I think, of 19, and then we needed 12 of 10 when Prithivi Shaw got out and Vihari got out when we needed 2 of 2. And then, so just to wrap up on that thought, I think we did deserve to win. We messed it up towards the end, but no complaints, and I will check out that super over.
Yeah, you definitely should. I plan to watch the third ball of that super over the Yorker over and over again, especially when inevitably Delhi starts to do pretty poorly in the latter stage of this tournament. So that'll be what I go back to watch.
Hey, fingers crossed, man. And also there was that Rabada ball to Milan a few years ago, another Yorker which was amazing. So he does have previous form for it, and he did defend, I think, 8 against Dhoni once when he burst onto the scene.
When he gets it right, this guy, I mean, when he gets it right, Rabada's absolutely unbelievable. He's a little bit less consistent in T20s, but just an unbelievable player. So really, really happy for him. Let's not lose sight of Shaw as well. Made 99. I mean, big things to come for this guy, but Delhi looking pretty solid. I feel like we spend a lot of time talking about Delhi, so I'm going to pivot to talk about one final thing from the week before we take a quick break. And that is the match that happened on Sunday, the early morning match, my time, which is the 4 p.m. match in India, which was Sunrisers Hyderabad versus the Royal Challengers Bangalore. So I woke up early to watch this. I've had a feeling about Bangalore this year, which, as we can safely say, has proven wrong. They currently languish at the bottom of the points table with 0 wins from 3 matches. But what an unbelievable match. I mean, just to talk about what I think were the highlights were Johnny Bairstow and David Warner put on a 185-run partnership. They ended, which I think was the highest opening partnership now in the IPL. They ended up being only the second team to have 2 centurions in the same innings. The first team to have done it, obviously, was on the other side, which was RCB has done that when Kohli and de Villiers both made centuries. But Johnny Bairstow, 114 off 56 balls. David Warner, 100 off 55 balls. 231. It was always going to be an uphill battle. And then, of course, as RCB tends to do, they came on and collapsed. They had Parthiv Patel made 11, and they had a series of single-digit scores that took them to 35 for 6. All the statisticians came out saying they need to cross 85 to avoid the biggest margin of defeat ever. People were thinking they'll get all out for under 49, which was their lowest score, unfortunately, also made by RCB. So disappointing performance by RCB, but I just want to get your quick thoughts, DJ, on the dual Centurions. I mean, Kane Williamson sat out today. Just how incredibly strong is this partnership between Bairstow and Warner? I just want to add, this is the 3rd consecutive partnership they're playing, and it's the 3rd consecutive century, 100-run plus partnership. And it was pretty incredible to see when Bairstow scored a century, a huge embrace between a British player and an Aussie player who will be on opposite sides of the aisle in just a few months during the Ashes. But for now, they're partnering and seem to be the best opening player of the tournament.
Yeah, I like the way you mentioned opposite sides of the aisle, like they were married. But I mean, what a partnership they have had, right? And the way they've complemented each other, I think, as you pointed out when we were chatting today, David Warner actually just took a backseat and actually gave the strike to Bairstow, and that shows the maturity and the understanding that David Warner has of the game. And he said, okay, Bairstow's striking it well today. Let me give him the strike and turn it over. I'm going to play the second fiddle today, which I have to say isn't something that he usually does, right? When he used to open with Shikhar, he used to take the lead and he used to be the aggressor. And today he wasn't the aggressor, even though he got to 100 towards the end. And you mentioned David de Villiers and Kohli. This partnership very much reminded me of that, because there was one game where I think de Villiers got to 100, and then Kohli just motored to 100 from like 65 to 100 in the last 2.5 overs or 3 overs or something like that. This is very similar, and just incredible hitting. And RCB apparently is what they've been called, and their lead bowler has been called Luzvendra Chahal, and Virat Kohli, and all these things have been thrown around on Twitter. But I mean, who knows? They might bounce back, but at the moment, your prediction isn't looking great for them, I must say.
I remember, just a reminder for our listeners, I predicted 4 teams will make the top 4. CSK, Hyderabad, Delhi, and Bangalore. So 3 of those are looking pretty good. I will admit the 4th is not looking good. Look, I think their weakness is very clearly in their quick bowling, and they have Nathan Coulter-Nile and Marcus Stoinis both joining them. So I think they'll see their fortunes turn around. Will it be enough to make the top 4 is looking unlikely, but let's see how that goes.
And quick shout out to the CSK fans, where Thala has scored 70 odd today as well. So well done to MS Dhoni and the CSK fans on that.
I mean, this is the one where I said we've seen lots of new things, but we've seen lots more of the same. And Chennai at the top of the table, 3 matches, 3 wins, clinical, 6 points, pretty healthy net run rate, and they're dominating from day one. So it'll take something pretty special to remove Chennai from the top of that table. Okay, So that wraps up. A lot happened. Very, very busy week. We'll try to do this each week during the rest of the IPL. We're going to take a quick break. And as I mentioned, we'll come back for a deeper discussion on a few things about the Mumbai Indians, both about their few games this season and their squad and things in general. So stay tight. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everyone, from the break. We have with us this week a Mumbai Indians fan, Gauravi. Now, some of those of you who've been following our podcast will remember Gauravi was here with us last year as well as the Mumbai Indians fan. And so we're really grateful for her joining us again. She does bear a tangential relationship to this podcast, given that she is married to Ashwin. So, Gauravi, thank you very much for being back on the podcast again.
Thank you so much for having me on again.
No, we're delighted as always. Mumbai Indians, what are they doing this season? What's going on with their squad? Are you happy with their squad?
I mean, the squad is here. They've only played 3 games so far, so I am curious to see what happens further on. This seems to be a bit of a Mumbai Indians trend where they lose the first few games and then they kind of bounce back. So I'm very curious to see what happens, what goes on further. Are they able to get that middle order functioning again? I'm very curious to see what goes on here. But I think that the team looks balanced. It looks well balanced. It's going to be a matter of, is the captain able to bring out the best in the players?
Amazing. So let's drill down on all of those things. So I'm going to ask you first about Yuvraj Singh. I mean, a favorite of all of us in the 2000s and maybe the early part of this decade as well. But his form kind of fell away a little bit. But he was bought by Mumbai in the last round of bidding. And he's been playing in the games he's been playing the games instead of Ishan Kishan. So your thoughts on that particular selection?
Again, I think it's a little bit too early to really make a judgment on whether or not he's good for the team. I mean, he had one really good game, and then he had one where he hit the 3 sixes and then got out immediately. So it's one of these things where his experience should play a part in the future in trying to hopefully find a way to consolidate those innings. So let's give him a little bit more time. Let's see if he's able to really come in. Now, we watched that documentary. That's why the Cricket Fever documentary. So, it's very fresh in my mind how Ishan Kishan performed last year. And it seemed like he's a little bit young, he's a little bit immature, and so the consistency of his performance was affected by that. So I'm wondering if we have Yuvraj's experience kind of balance out the consistency issue that Ishan Kishan had last year.
Did it take you back to 2007 when he hit those 3 sixes of Chahal to start the over?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you watch this every year on and off, and so it's a little bit difficult to remember exact experiences. But of course, like I remember that very, very clearly.
Yeah, I mean, I think social media almost broke when he had 3 sixes. Everybody was tweeting at Stuart Broad, and just people were going crazy expecting 6. Now, it's such a rarity in anybody's career to hit 6 sixes in an over. I don't know if anybody's done it twice, but I certainly think people were excited about it. I still think 3 sixes was pretty good.
Yeah, also Draco Malfoy, what's his name? Stuart Broad actually came out and said, when Chahal said that, I was feeling a bit like Stuart Broad when those 3 sixes went out of the park. Stuart actually, I think it was on Instagram, said, I hope you feel like me one day when you've taken 437 wickets. So well done to Draco for following Chahal's progress on Insta.
Chahal in general, for anybody who doesn't follow him is fascinating on Insta. He keeps commenting on Rohit's posts with his wife, and it's very interesting. He's a funny guy on social media.
And he's also friends with Simons, right?
Yeah, we talked about that once. He and Simons' wife are like best buds. It's so bizarre, but anyway.
Yeah, that is pretty bizarre, given the difference generally in their physique and stuff as well. So I see Chahal's like always posing, showing his muscles off, and so it's quite amusing. But anyway, just moving on from Chahal, sorry, not from Chahal, from Yuvi and Ishan. Too many Pandyas in one team? Are Hardik Pandya and Krunal Pandya doing the same job?
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the matches in general, I think they have similar strengths. So if one of them does well, it's likely that the other will do well too. So they don't really have a complementary relationship, which is what I think Mumbai Indians needs in that middle order there. I think if one of them fails, the other person should be able to come and pick it up. And they haven't really been able to do that so far. So I do wonder if, it is too many Pandyas, or if they're able to work their strategy around a little bit and say, hey, perhaps we'll focus on different things moving forward so that we give different strengths to the team.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here, Gauravi. If you had to pick one Pandya for the Mumbai Indians, which one would it be?
Oh, I don't know. That's hard. I think, yeah, that's really hard. See, they both played such a big role for Mumbai Indians in their own way, right? You know what I would do if I had to pick? I would go and look at their statistics over the years, and I would, give them a point system. Maybe if do you know who did better in like the fantasy league last year? Was it Hardik or Kunal?
That's a good question. I'm assuming last year was Krunal. He had a pretty good run with the ball as well, but actually I don't have that stat in front of me.
Yeah,
that's an interesting answer. I think this year actually Hardik's been more of the impact player. His team's been pretty good, and I particularly enjoyed it. I think was it against RCB? Siraj tipped Siraj for like 20 of the last over, and then he just like flexed his bicep after hitting the ball out of the park.
Yeah. He has been playing really well this year. So let's see again. I think it's a bit early, 3 games in, especially with a team like Mumbai that usually finds its machine a little bit later on in every tournament. So let's see how it goes.
Just on Pandya, that's what somebody was saying on the internet, on Twitter, right? That all 3 Jamaican players this year have done well so far. Russell, Gale, and Hardik have all performed pretty well. So.
Yeah, and speaking of the West Indians, what is Karan Pollard doing in the Mumbai Indians setup? Is he setting up to be coach for next season, or he's not really doing very much? Or what is his role?
Yeah, and frankly, I felt this. I'd started feeling this way last year. I think he had a few good games last year, but not all. And I think his performance then was a little bit shaky as well. Consistency issues. He'd do really well one game, and then the next game he'd come in and just completely flop. So I'm not really sure, what hole he's filling in the team, or whether he's really required right now. But yeah, I mean, if he wants to be a coach, perhaps that's a good place, I guess. He has a lot of potential. Of course, we've seen him hit. We've seen him perform very well in T20 format. But this is just something where perhaps the emotions of the owners might be getting in the way. And just trying to keep Pollard in. Pollard's been a little bit of a mainstay of the Mumbai Indians team. So yeah, maybe it's an emotional decision.
DJ, do you think if Pollard wasn't emotionally part of the Mumbai team, if he was just in the open auction for 2019, you think he would have been bought by another team?
I think he would have been. You forget. I know we call him Polly Kaka and all of that stuff. He's only 31.
Is he really only 31?
He's only 31 years old.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
He is only 31 years old. He's been playing the IPL for 9 years, I think. He started when he was 23.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And he looks a lot older than I think he is. And he has a lot to give in the field. He's athletic. You saw that catch he took, right? In their first game. And that was fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I feel he feels a little bit... I think he isn't feeling the love. And I think he's one of those players. He's quite emotional, as we saw from the Cricket Fever documentary. He needs a little bit of love. And he's not been feeling it of late. And maybe it's because of Mahela. And Mahela is a very kind of pragmatic, realistic, practical coach. And he picks out technical glitches, as you saw as well. He picked out the fact that Pollard's bat handle was turning because his grip was closing. And Mahela will be ruthless with that kind of thing. Whereas Pollard, I think, needs a softer touch in some ways. He's a great kind of leader in the dressing room. And I think he's a big presence in the dressing room. But I think he's going to look elsewhere. If his bad form continues for the Mumbai Indians, I think he may be dropped. And then I think next season he will look elsewhere, and he will look to go elsewhere, maybe. And speaking of leadership, actually, Rohit Sharma, what are your thoughts on Rohit as a captain? Because there's been a lot of chatter over the last 6, 7, 8 months, and Ashwin and I and Varun have been dealing with this. Should Kohli give up the one-day captaincy to Rohit, who's this brilliant IPL leader who's won the IPL 3 times and is a mastermind and all of that stuff? Is all of that justified? Do you think that Rohit Sharma is a great captain?
So this is interesting, right? And I think that documentary, the Cricket Fever documentary, comes into play a lot in my sort of opinion about this, because in that documentary, we didn't really see him standing up. We didn't really see him doing quote unquote leadership things. He wasn't really able to motivate the team. The team was affected by a lot of morale issues. I saw that in the last game as well, where they lost, was that as soon as they're halfway through the game, they think they're losing. So then their shoulders start dropping, their entire physical motivation goes away, and then they end up losing. So I'm not sure, and I think that is the role of a captain. I think the captain should be there to bring the team up, to tell them, hey, it's okay, we'll do it. And just based on that documentary, I think he lacks in that little bit of morale lifting. As you said, Mahela is a little bit more stats driven, a little more straightforward, and a lot of sports people, I think, are driven by that. Maybe not Pollard, but a lot of people are driven by that. Are driven by, hey, you're good because look at what you did last game. And I'm not really sure if he wasn't portrayed in the right light in the documentary, or what exactly happened there. But I do feel that his leadership abilities as a whole started coming to doubt. Yes, he has won 3 IPLs. Clearly something was going right. But I'm wondering, was he the only reason for that? Or is he just a really good player? And then people are affected by the way he plays, and then they try to, emulate his leadership. I'm not really sure what it is about him that made him win those 3 IPLs, but just based on the documentary, I don't really see those soft skills, those leadership skills that we generally talk about.
I think you touched on something interesting in the end of what you were saying too, which is, as far as I can remember, just qualitatively, I don't have the data, we can pull it after. Every time Mumbai's done really well, not just in a season, but in a match, it's been when Rohit bats well, right? And so sometimes he's been at the top of the order, sometimes he's batted at 4, but it feels like he's been quote unquote leading from the front, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's a good leader when they're in the field, when they're in the dressing room, but he's been leading well with the bat,
Yeah, so I think his principle might be to lead by example while playing. And I'm not sure if that's good enough to boost morale when he doesn't play well.
Interesting. Does he come across a little bit soft, Ashwin?
Yeah, I mean, I've said this for a while too. I just don't think he's the commanding presence that a Dhoni or a Kohli has. Now, I have separate issues with Kohli as a tactician in terms of like the field placing and his bowling choices and things like that. But you just feel like even in the match that happened earlier today where Chennai was playing, you see Dhoni before they walk on the field and he's got the huddle going and he's clearly sharing wisdom and insight. And I'm just not really sure that Rohit commands that or he relies on Mahela to do that. And Mahela's just not there for the 40 overs other than the entire strategic timeouts, right? So
very interesting, all of that. So let me talk to you about a couple of incidents that the main incident that took place versus RCB, because the only points Mumbai have on the board right now, Gauravi, are against in the game against RCB where they won off the last ball, and there was a certain amount of controversy about that as well.
Yeah,
with Malinga, the old warhorse, overstepping by about an inch, and Kohli was absolutely scathing of the umpires.
Yeah,
saying,
he was absolutely livid. Yeah,
this is not club cricket. This is IPL level cricket. Why aren't they keeping their eyes open and this and that? And to be fair, I mean, I think the man had a point, because if a wicket had gone down, well, I don't know whether they would have checked the no ball, but I mean, is there a case for technology to be had? Gauravi, I'll come to you first, and Ashwin, I want your thoughts on this as well. Just after Gauravi.
I mean, I've been saying this for years, just that technology is available for so many sports. When you look at hockey, there's an immediate light that goes off as soon as the puck crosses the line. When you look at baseball, there's literally a square on the screen that you see that, is this a fair ball or not? So I don't really see why we cannot use technology. And we're using technology for other aspects of the game, for, the edge, what's that thing called?
The ultra edge, yeah.
The ultra edge, etc. So why can't we use it for no balls, like for overstepping? Because, this is a game where nobody wants to win because of getting an unfair advantage. And even what Rohit said in the match, the after-match interview, where he said he was also pretty annoyed by the fact that this had happened, because it kind of marred the victory for them. And no one wants to win because there's been a technical gaffe. No one wants to win because the umpires weren't watching. So I think at this level of the game, it's an international game, it's an international platform. Everyone is high achieving and everyone wants to win fairly. I don't think these sorts of things should be allowed.
Yeah, I can just build on that. I 100% agree with what Gauravi said. I think it's time for technology in the game. The only thing I'll add on the match we're talking about in particular is, I think they needed 6 or 5 off the last ball, 6 to have won it, 4 to have tied it. And Shivam Dubey was on strike, young, inexperienced, playing against Malinga. And they didn't run after the last ball, even though it wasn't called a no ball. So theoretically, it was called a no ball. They would have had to come back, free hit, and Dubey still on strike, still needing a boundary to win. So I don't think it was one of those situations where, Kohli was livid, of course, but it wasn't a slam dunk guaranteed victory for RCB had the no ball been called. I think Mumbai were deserving winners, would have probably won that match even if the no ball was called. But to your point, it was just very frustrating that became the talking point.
Yeah, and regardless of if this was going to be a match-winning situation in the future, it might be, right?
Absolutely.
So you don't ever want to be in that situation where there is such a doubt.
Yeah, and the big example that we've been given is that of tennis, where you've got the foot fault, right? And the beep goes off immediately. So whenever the player's actually over the line. So maybe we can find some kind of use for that kind of technology in cricket. So plenty of action actually on at the non-strikers end this week. So maybe something to be learned from there. But Gauravi, let me come to you very quickly on who your favorite Mumbai Indians player is, or is it a member of the coaching staff, or is it an owner? Who's your favorite Mumbai Indians character and why?
Please don't say Akash Ambani.
Oh my God, you read my mind. No.
Never.
No, it's actually Malinga. I've admired him over the years. I think he's just been a mainstay of the Mumbai Indians team. I was actually very happy when he was the bowling coach last year as well, and I'm doubly happy that he's come back as a bowler back in the squad this year. I've always really admired him. I think his method of playing is consistent. It's strong. He gives off a positive vibe to the team. I just really like what he provides to the squad in general.
Fantastic. So we put out the same tweet to the Mumbai Indians fans on our Twitter, and we got some interesting answers. We asked why they follow the Mumbai Indians and who their favorite player is and things like that. So Karthik Jayaraman writes in, been a fan since the first season, got in because of Sachin and gradually loved the core team. Not a fan of Rohit, so getting behind the team at times is complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a theme that you see a lot of? Because lots of people got into the Mumbai Indians because of Sachin?
Yeah, see, this is the thing, right? Sachin was such a charismatic character and still is. He's still in the stands and there's people still yelling Sachin, Sachin at every match, even if Mumbai is not playing. So
I think we've been guilty of starting that at some matches in England. But anyway.
Yeah. But
after Sachin had retired as well, it was not if he was not playing. He was never going to play again.
No, wasn't even exactly at least in these situations you're talking about, he's sitting at the ground.
Yeah, so he's not even in the ground.
We were doing that when there was nobody, there was no Sachin. He wasn't even in the same country.
Yeah. So of course, and he's well deserving of that sort of praise. But yeah, Mumbai is a team of its own. It's finding its own bearing. It's won the IPL a couple of times after Sachin left, and it is a bit difficult to find a single character within Mumbai to sort of love. But I think in the IPL in general, I don't think you should be following it because of one individual player. You should follow it for the passion of the game, for the city that you might be passionate about for whatever reason. So, yeah, I think each team has their own, charms. And I think Mumbai's charms is the city itself.
Very interesting, because Karthik actually followed up with that and said that there's loads of Mumbai Indians fans, but they're not hardcore. They're all sitting on the fringe, kind of sitting on the fence and just joining in when Mumbai wins. So I don't know what that shows of the Mumbai Indian hardcore, because I was led to believe that there's loads of them out there just thronging the streets whenever Mumbai win. So that was interesting. Yeah. Arindam actually said that it's Sachin that drew him to the game as well, and he kind of stayed because of that. Jeet wrote in talking about the owners, which he felt pumped a lot of money into the game. So he said that the owners seem to take an active part in every game because with the Ambanis, money seems to be everything. Mm-hmm. They performed a puja before the IPL started for the players' good health and safety. The very first match of Hardik Pandya getting injured. and they observe that they spend so much money on every small aspect on a bid to succeed. And will they win this year's IPL? Only when the Ambanis call the players for a team bonding session and let them drive the cars that they have in their massive fleet instead of playing treasure hunt. Is that the secret to Mumbai Indians winning the IPL this year?
Yeah, I mean, look, that documentary.
I'm taking that as a no comment.
Yeah, it's one of these things. Look, that documentary definitely gave us a lot more insights into the way that team functions. It, was it a little bit ridiculous, that whole episode about when they went up to the Ambani house and were in some virtual reality roller coaster thingy? Yeah, it was a little bit ridiculous. Do the Ambanis have the most, a lot of money in India? Yeah, they do. So yes, I mean, they do a lot. I don't know if pujas are really going to help the performance of the players on the team, but each to his own beliefs. I think the team, it's a sports team. The owners have put in a lot of effort into it. Akash is very, very involved. Either to the betterment or detriment of the team. I'm not really sure about that, but yeah, I'm not really sure what to say about that. All teams have owners. All owners are, interesting characters. And so, yeah. What do you think, Ashwin?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about it a lot on the show. Nothing especially new to add. I think disappointing to see them show up in the dressing room of every game and criticizing the players. I think that's the captain and coach's job. The owners should be there every few games or, at the big events and things like that. But yeah, I think we've talked about it a lot.
Okay, Gauravi, last question. Where is MI going to finish this year? Is it going to be a playoff spot? Are they going to win? Or are they going to be out at the group stage?
The thing about MI's performance is that it is so impossible to really say at this point what they're going to do. Suddenly they might find their rhythm and, start winning all their games and push through to the top 4 and then magically push through and win the final as well. That's been done before. So as a Mumbai Indians fan, I hope they win. Pragmatically, I hope they, just end up in the top 4. That's really what I think their goal right now should be, is get into the top 4, get to the playoffs, and then, try and leverage your strengths. The team really does need to find, I think, a consistent rhythm. And I think, just the squad composition needs to be figured out, and the way Rohit is a leader needs to be figured out as well.
Very good. Gauravi, thank you so much for joining us, and we're all looking forward to Mumbai doing well this season. Not as well as Delhi, of course, but doing well. And again, thank you again for joining us, and we're looking forward to also Cricket Fever Season 2, right? So that's going to be fun to watch. Now, the last segment we've got for today is the fantasy update. So, Ashwin, I'm actually going to gracefully bow out at this stage because I think I'm currently 47 out of 56 or something like that. So
hang on, I'll be able to find it. I just need to scroll for pretty long before I get there.
Are you using my jokes?
Where is it? Oh, there it is. 41. 41. You've been saying this to me for years. So.
Okay, I just want to add one quick sentence about the Fantasy League. I am a 2-time past champion of the Fantasy League, and this year I was not able to get my team together because they had an outage the day you had to put your fantasy team together, and I am highly disappointed. And honestly, the IPL experience as a whole is hugely disappointing for me, just because I don't have any fantasy team to follow. Anyway, end rant.
Let's hope.
That's really sad. Was his Dream 11 just having an outage?
Yeah, the entire site went down about within the hour before. And so
ridiculous.
For those of us who had updated it before, I think the match is at 8 p.m. IST. For those of us who had updated it before 6:37 p.m., it was fine. For anybody who didn't, so a lot of people in our league had made like a dummy team hoping to swap it in. So they had their dummy players for the first round, and then people like Gauravi didn't actually get to make the team. So very disappointing.
That is really sad because Gauravi is a serious fantasy cricket player, and that is extremely disappointing. But the other guy who made the dummy team seems to be doing really well. I think he's third in our league now, which is
So let's just go through the Edges and Sledges Listener League. If you haven't joined it yet, you can find it in our pinned tweet on Twitter at One Tip One Hand. But we have 56 teams joined, so thank you to everybody who's joined us. I'm happy to say I'm the first leading among the three of us that host the show, but I'm languishing in 19th among the total league. So it obviously means some of our listeners and those of you guys out there are a lot smarter than we are when it comes to fantasy cricket. But I just want to shout out the top 5 teams we have. So in first place, the at this point, which is at the end of 12 matches. We have Dhruv, 41, who has a whopping 949 points. But right at his heels is Rajesh Patki in second place. Number 3, we have a team called Live Your Passion with 907 points. A distant fourth is High Scott 99 with 816 points. And then fifth place with 803 is Chacha Chaudhary, who I believe is Harpreet, who's been a long-time listener of the show. So, guys, really great work. If you haven't joined the league yet, join us. But 56 team is pretty competitive. I will say all the way in 53rd, 54th is teams with about 400 odd points, and DJ in 41st you have about 540 points. So still pretty close. It's anybody's game. I mean, if you happen to have a Warner or Bairstow or both who had centuries earlier today, you can immediately jump up in the league. So again, thank you to everybody for playing. That also brings us to the end of episode 53. So thanks for listening, Gauravi. Thanks for joining us. As we mentioned, for the next 6 weeks now, we've done a Delhi special, we've done a Mumbai special. In the next 6 weeks, you can expect we'll have one fan from each of the remaining 6 teams joining us. We'll do a little bit of a chat similar to this, where for half the show, we talk specifically about that team. So definitely tune in. Send us your questions, thoughts, feedback. We're on Facebook at One Tip One Hand, Twitter, Instagram at One Tip One Hand as well. Or you can email us anytime, contact@onetiponehand.com. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. This is the Edges and Sledges cricket podcasts on Google Play, Spotify, iTunes, etc. And we'll be back in about a week's time when I think 2021 matches of the IPL will be done. Hopefully lots more excitement like we've had in this past week. And we'll look forward to talking to you then. Thanks, DJ. Thanks, Gauravi.